Yo, what's going on, good people? It's your boy 3 Stacks in this thing, baby. Representing Team Kings of Games. And today I'm coming at you guys with an update that you guys have been waiting for my favorite deck of all time. What euphoria I get just by looking at these cards. It is Herald of Perfection. I have actually played this deck literally since, I believe it's 2010, if I'm not mistaken. It should be 2010. The debut of Shining Darkness should be 2010 because that's where the set Herald came out. Yeah, it is 2010. Yeah, I've never actually given up on this deck at all. When the card first came out, I admit it was a little underwhelming because on pen and paper, he just looks like such an amazing card. And I was like, dude, I want to make this work because I was just such a fanatic of fairy-type monsters. You guys, if you follow the channel, you know why I love fairies, because they look holy and pure. And typically, a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh cards look very demonic and evil. And I just liked that I could play fairies because they're typically resembling angels, which, you know, is kind of biblical when you think about how it correlates. But, yeah, I was just like, dude, I wanted to build a really good fairy deck. Then this guy comes out in Shining Darkness. I'm like, okay, so now not only can I make a fairy deck, but I can make it focused on him and still play all my other favorite fairy monsters. And it just wasn't working good. The Sinjus, the Sonic Birds, the Adventural Arts, the Arbitamas, it just wasn't good enough. But you know what? I was dedicated. I never gave up. Years and years and years down the line, got a little bit of support here and there. Prep kind of helped because Prep was not that prevalent. I was playing it when it came out, but basically what ended up breaking this deck was the Cyber Angel support, which was the Ben 10s and the Ritual Sanctuaries and the Petite. And then later down the line, like Prep came back off the list. Honest went to 3. We got Incantations. We got Celestial Observatories. Freaking Pot of Desires wasn't even out at the time, but now Pot of Desires is legal. Then Merciful Machine Angel. I mean, dude, it's just crazy because, like, when you think about how much better this deck has gotten and how powerful it's really become, like, just constantly getting more cards, it's actually crazy that, it's like coincidental, but unintentionally, Konami released cards that made this deck more powerful so often that it really elevated the ceiling of the deck from a tier 3 deck to what I consider to be a tier 2 deck. I would always say it's a tier 0 deck for me personally because of my playstyle and how good I am with the deck and just how I know it can beat the meta, but the problem is it has no representation and nobody plays it that I really know of outside of my subscribers. But yeah, you guys, that's a long story short, even though it's still long. Let's hop into the main deck. So this is variation number 110. We have 109 different builds. And my variations started with when Cyber Angel Ben 10 came out. I don't consider any other builds that I tried before that variations because those builds were inconsistent and I could not get more than 3 fairies in my hand no matter how hard I tried. I never had a Herald of Perfection deck that I could end with more than 3 fairies in hand until Ben 10 came out. So those were inconsistent to me because I'd negate 3 cards and have nothing left to play. But anyways, the man, the myth, the legend, the best Yu-Gi-Oh card ever printed, right? This guy is amazing. I mean, you could argue with me all you want about boss monsters, but I just feel so strongly about this card that you can never change my opinion. And I feel like if you have your own opinion, I'm never going to try to change yours, and I'm not going to argue with you. So please don't try to tell me who's a better boss monster because I just believe in my heart that this is the best boss monster, and that's just me. Literally, like, you can just imagine Gandalf in the middle of, just in the middle of the bridge, holding the scepter, sitting on the sovereignty, just like, you shall not pass! And then, boom, out comes Christia, and they're like, oh, all right, good game, bro. 3 copies of Princess Katana. Hiya! His faithful princess, man. I mean, honestly, she used to be a side hoe. Now she's the main. Like, she's worked her way up, man. I mean, honestly, like, she's more loyal than any of the other side chicks. So, yeah, this is Herald's, like, main girl right here. I mean, Christia has been loyal to him, but Ben 10 in general is just like, she's the general of the army. She also conveniently recruits all of my soldiers. She's awesome. So here's all of our blue cards. This is the correct ratio, by the way. Trust me when I say, and not to sound like all arrogant or whatever you want to say it is, trust me, I've tried basically it all. Like, I've tried so many different variants of blue cards in different ratios, percentages, just testing out the probability and statistic aspect of it, mathematical algorithms to follow. 6 blue cards is correct, no more, no less. If you want to play less, that's fine, but I feel like these 3 are all you need. Saphira's incredible. There's so many other cards you could play. Heck, you can even do the Primal Bird. Like, there's so many different ways you could play this deck. It's insane. But I think that minimizing on the blue cards down to the ones that matter the most and just playing only those is what's going to get you the best results. Because then you'll start drawing those weird hands where you have ritual monsters that don't have the ritual spell that match it, or ritual spells that don't have the ritual monster that matches it. But when you make Herald the only ritual monster that you summon and the ritual spell is always going to be live, you get the most consistent results. And then for the Star Seraphs. Now, the Star Seraphs, people have told me to cut it. Some people have said they're bad. I don't think that they're bad at all. In fact, honestly, like when World Superstars came out and I saw these cards, I knew instantly. That's another piece of support that indirectly we got support for Herald without it even being for Herald. This because they were fairies. Now, Cyber Angel Benton wasn't out post World Superstar, so I was just playing these in my deck and I was trying to sack with them, trying to find other draw power. Like I was playing Shard of Greed, bro. Shard of Greed. You guys know about that card? I was trying everything, man. But yeah, the Star Seraphs are just amazing. Elevated Ceiling going second. Also, what people don't understand about this deck is a lot of people think it sucks going second. Honestly, anybody that thinks this deck sucks going second, I feel like either just doesn't play the deck, don't know how to play the deck, or they're just talking about a deck that they just don't understand. Like typically, you'll get a bad vibe or a bad rep on your deck from somebody who's never played it. And it's like, how would you ever know something's bad unless you've played it? And I've played these cards for about 4 years now, and I've had no bad experiences with the Star Seraphs. Now they've also enabled so many more combos for Summon Sorceress. And also, typically, if I'm ever making Borlord or Borsword in one turn without just overcommitting, it's because of these cards. So yeah, they're amazing. Draw 3 pop cards. Clearing fields going second. It's amazing. Rip a card out of your opponent's hand. Get information on what you're playing. It's really good. Very, very skillful cards. Let's go for 3 Geldogra next. So Geldogra has been in the deck for a while now. I've toyed with it in the past. Like before the Cyber Angels came out, I was always running Geldogra. I never didn't run Geldogra. I was running it when this card was like out. I started running it, but before when this card wasn't out, Geldogra wasn't good enough. But when this card came out in the Challenger set, it just made Geldogra all the more worth it. And then I started playing it. So it's kind of funny that also my deck has indirectly gotten more consistent and more support that's not for it, but that just works for it. Like when Manju came out, because Sinju and Manju were not out at the same time. Sinju was out first. I remember playing Sinju and Sonic Bird. Then Manju came out. Then this card was already out, but then like it was this card that came out that made me want to play it, and then like the Star Seraphs, then the Cyber Angels, then you know all the other cards I talked about. It's amazing, right? Like literally being faithful and dedicated to your deck pays off that much to where if you don't give up on it and be like everybody else that like plays meta that says, oh, if it's not good, I'm not playing it. Like it's gonna be rewarding. Like I can imagine like people that have played decks for years too, you know, like Thomas Rose has played BA faithfully. But honestly, I don't really think anybody's been committed to a deck that was bad in the first place and waited for it to get good or try to forcefully make it good. I'm just very hard-headed. But there are people out there that are like me that are really hard-headed and just refuse to believe what people say and are like, no, I'm gonna make this work. And look at here are we now, like literally, you know, 9, almost 10 years down the road, here we are now, and my deck is as amazing as I wanted it to be before. I just never gave up. 3 Handy Mannies, he's my helping hand. I can't believe like that I can't believe the synergy that all my searchers have. So like with this deck, you have this kind of this hierarchy searching that you can do. You basically have a searcher that can search another searcher that searches another card that searches a card that can't be searched, if it makes sense. Like opening with Ritual Sanctuary can oftentimes lead to Manju or other cards like that, which oftentimes leads to your Star Seraph. So like Ritual Sanctuary can lead to this, this can lead to this can lead to that, and then ultimately your entire deck searchable as long as it's Light Fairies. It's crazy. Then we have Eva. I've increased the Eva package up by 1 target, mainly because of Pot of Desires, but typically the thing was, the only time Pot of Desires hurt was when I didn't have the Star Seraphs and I knew I couldn't make Summon Sorts, so I had to Desires, risking it. But when you have Desires and you do have the combo, you don't ever preemptive Desires. You always do your combo first and then you Desires just for the fairies that you can maximize in your hand. But Summon Sorceress typically just targets any fairy, brings her out, you turn her into Link Karibo, you banish 2, you add these, and then these literally give you follow-ups because you can negate with them, and then use Ritual Sanctuary to bring them back and then get extra resources to your hand. That's how you outgrind Sky Strikers, which is one of my easiest matchups ever. I'm not lying to you. Literally 2-0'd 5 Sky Strikers when I took this deck to San Antonio. Those were the only decks that I 2-0'd. Like everything else, we went to game 3. Trickstar Mandrake. So I started playing this card because I really wanted another Eva target that wasn't Lilybone, that wasn't Wadapon. I forgot its name. I think it's Wadapon or Hiniwada. I just didn't want it to special summon itself. Like, I didn't want the way it special summons itself to be if it's added, because a lot of times when I'm adding fairies to my hand, I want to keep them in my hand. You know what I mean? Like, I just want the negations. I'm a very, very cautious and resource-intensive player. Oftentimes, the way I manage my resources is I'm not trying to go for the greed play. So if I already have 5 fairies, I'm typically not going to resolve a Desires knowing that I'll have 7 cards in it, and I'll have to discard, and I'll probably kill my engine. Typically, if I already have enough to establish a board, I'll hold the rest of my cards for my follow-up plays, because this deck can negate everything your opponent plays, but it's not going to be as impactful if you can't OTK your opponent next turn. So oftentimes, you need to save some of your power plays. So I'll set spells down and like keep the resources that I have. And with Eva, it helps you because you can have 4 negates and like extra pre-prep that you drew off of your combo or just off of your draw spells that you already activated. So you set that, and then you can set your other spells like Celestial Observatory, and you keep the 4 fairies you have in hand. But with Eva, Eva makes the 4 fairies into 6 negations. So you can negate every card your opponent plays, and you still have the follow-up. So, and typically you're ending with 6 cards in hand. But if you don't know what Mandrake does, it basically special summons itself from the graveyard if it's sent from the hand to the grave. And why is it being sent? Because Herald has to discard fairies for cost in order to negate. So literally by paying cost with this card, you get it on field. And that enables Hippo Shinigen plays. It also enables Summon Sorceress plays, because typically you leave Summon Sorceress on your field. You don't link her off. Rarely do you ever do that. And also it enables Borosword plays. So yeah, it's a really good card. And I felt, for me personally, outside of Lilybell attacking directly for time, I just wanted this card because it was a lot better for me. Because what you want to do is you want to discard one of these, and then you want to discard this, special this, and then use Ritual Sanctuary to bring this back. So you have 2 free bodies on your field before you even normal summon, and that leads to Borosword automatically. It's just crazy. This deck is actually really crazy good. Definitely, like, all my followers understand this, that I don't lie or exaggerate about how good this deck is. Asura Priest is the card that I played in Herald Variation number 41. I lost it, and it was hard to find another one of it because this card's really old and underrated. And it didn't really see play in its time, in its debut into the game. But I found a way to make this card work, obviously, just with Honest. So typically what you're doing with this card is you're just using it as a level 4 Ultimate Conductor Tyranno that can attack all monsters your opponent controls. But it can't attack directly. That's fine. Because what you do with Borosword or without Borosword, you can OTK with this card. But with Borosword, it's guaranteed. So you just Asura, attack the highest attack monster your opponent has, drop an Honest, because these are all searchable, and Benton's not once per turn. And it'll have the attack that Honest gave it until the end of the turn. So it'll be huge, and it can attack every other monster your opponent controls. Even if it's not game, this card's a spirit, so it returns to your hand during the end phase, and that's a negation that you can use for the follow-up. So it's never going to be a bad scenario with Asura Priest. It's a really good card. We're trying to be innovative, but we're not trying to like go outside of the or I would say deviate outside of the actual strategy of the deck. We don't want to play too many bricks, and if you look at it, we already have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Eva's not a brick, 6 bricks, and that I felt like 6 bricks was enough. Because even though the deck's crazy good and crazy consistent, because you have a lot of those draw 2 spells, you'll oftentimes draw into the 1-ofs that you really don't want. You want to search them for later on. And then Christia. Typically, your inning boards are always going to have Christia with Herald, so your opponent can't play Yu-Gi-Oh! Games 2 and 3, we get really smart with siding. Because you have so many searchable level 2s, what we end up doing is I make Herald and Christia and only them. And people always want to figure out how I do that because they're like, oh, no, it's impossible. There's no way. Literally, bro, you tribute one of the level 2s from field or hand plus the level 4. Normally, whichever one's on your field, the level 4, the level 2, typically it's Geldokra. You tribute him in a level 4, you summon Herald, you add the level 4 back off of your ritual spell, and then you special Christia, and you literally just have Herald and Christia. The reason why you just want to have Herald and Christia and no other cards is so that your opponent can't spear mold your board, they can't lava golem you, they can't kaiju. They have to be playing a Solemn Strike in order for them to out your board. That's the only way they could possibly out it, other than having 7 cards in hand, which is impossible because they don't get to draw 7 for turn, and you're not going to let them resolve any +1s. So if they don't have a Solemn Strike, they can't out your board, and Solemn Strike is not seeing very much play. So it's normally a really, really safe board, and it's never been outed. The only time anyone has ever broken my board is with the Spear Mode, and I started to play really smart after that. Then next up for spells, we have 3 pre-prep. It's the Jushin Berries. It's a +1 that only these kind of decks can play, and I like that. That's what makes it fair. It makes it balanced. even though it's a +1 because ritual decks are not popular. And you can't hate on this card and cry about it being banned because nobody's playing rituals. Then we have 3 prep. Thank you, Necros, for getting this card hit because you really hurt my deck back in the day. But it's back at 3. It is also a better card going second when you're playing through negations because you can get a +1 after a negation. So they'll you activate the ritual spell, they negate it, which is a smart player would. You follow up with this that's not once per turn, so it never clogs in multiples. And you add your ritual spell back, and then you do the same play you're trying to make anyways. Then we have 3 extra Foolish Burial. Typically, you search your combo pieces off of this, or you just out floodgates. Like, it's literally happened where I just went, I had stick chair in my hand already. So what I did was I just dropped the stick chair. I normaled stick. I revealed chair. I specialed it. I drew. I searched. I revealed the sovereignty. He activates summon limit. I was like, oh, dang. Extra Foolish Burial. Pop the summon limit. And the ending board that I had was lackluster because of the summon limit. So I literally just ended on Hippo, Shinigen, and Herald. But that was enough to still get game. So yeah, this card's really good, not just for searching your combo pieces, but just the fact that you can send the Elder Entity, who also is a light fairy, so she stays with the theme of the deck. Just a clear card makes it that much better as a 3-of. And then also it conveniently outs. Also, there can only be 1, which can hurt this deck. We have 3 copies of Optimus. I'm sorry, not Optimus Prime, but Las Vegas, and then 2 copies of Optimus Prime. Playing it at 2, I've always played it at 2, so when it got limited to 2, it didn't really hurt my deck at all. In fact, I was kind of just like, thank God that I only played 2, because if I felt like I needed 3, or if this wasn't once per turn, it would technically be a hit. But quote to quote, so to speak, my deck's never been hit on the ban list, and the reason why is because nobody plays Herald. And nobody takes them. I feel like nobody takes this deck as serious as I do. Not to say that nobody else in the world that exists play this deck. I just feel like nobody takes it as seriously as I do. Like literally a day 1 and never stopped. Herald a perfection player. And then we have 3 copies of Pot of Desires. +1s are very relevant in this deck, especially because I actually opt to play No Call by the Graves all the time. I've never played it in my deck because I know the only hand trap that can beat me is Droll. And typically, when my opponent drolls, it's on the resolution of cards that already gave me my combo pieces. Like, literally, I've never had an instance where I got drolled. And I've played through drolls, and have drolls been used against me for years. Years and years and years. When a card gets used against you for years, you learn how to play around it. And it's just how it goes. Typically, when I just play around droll, even if they don't have it. So I just activate my most important search first. And, like, typically it's pre-prep. Once they draw in pre-prep resolution, you just don't search off Benton, but you still keep negations. You still have 4 fairies in hand, and they discarded a card, which was the Joel, so they have 5 playing through 4 negates. So with 1 card left, they have to break your board and OTK you. Otherwise, they're just going to lose. And then 3 Celestial Observatory. Now, if you play the incantations, this can be a +1, but generically, it's just a swap 2. So you break even with it, but it can count towards the spell count in your grave for your Sanctuary, which is really important. For your grind game, oftentimes, like when you don't have Christia, because you can't make it every single time, but when you don't have Christia and your opponent Kaiju's your Herald, it's really clutch when you could just bring it back off Sanctuary, or just extend your combo plays turn 1 to make Abyss Dweller. You do Summon Sorceress, you bring out the level 4, which is going to be Scepter, then you bring another level 4 back off of Sanctuary, and you make your Abyss Dweller. That way, you don't automatically lose to, like, True Draco spells, True Draco traps, and you don't have to waste negations on, like, Dangers or, like, Salamangreat, Graveyard Effects, stuff like that. And then also 2 copies of Merciful Machine Angel Ritual. So this card originally was at 3, and I really love it at 3. I never had problems with it at all. But it was one of the easiest cards that I could cut, because it's the worst of the draw 2 spells that I play because it has a restriction on it, and these don't have a restriction. Hard One's Return, I don't consider it to be a restriction. Hard One's Return is just what makes things balanced in Yu-Gi-Oh! A lot of my cards are Hard One's Return, except for Herald and some other cards. But yeah, it's a draw 2. But typically what you're doing is you're drawing 2, you're fixing your hand, you're putting back the bricks back into your main deck, especially your Eva targets, and then you're searching off of Benton again. So typically you get to generate 3 cards off of it. The only thing with it is that you can only ritual summon for the rest of the turn. And it's not that bad. But the thing is, because it's the only draw spell with the restriction, and it's the most situational to resolve, I cut it down to 2. You're going to have Herald and Benton, which are level 6s. With this, you just activate it. With this, you have to have Benton. And then 3 Dawn of the Herald. To sum up the main deck, I have rarely ever played 40-card Heralds. The reason being is because every time I put more cards in it, it's just more consistency cards. In this instance, I did incorporate a couple bricks, and I cut a Merciful Machine Angel Ritual to do so. But normally, your deck, when you're putting in more cards that enable deck thinning, it doesn't make it any less consistent. As long as it's repetitiously doing the same thing over and over, then the results are proven. The extra deck is 3 baby Heralds. Isn't it awesome? It's just a euphoric feeling to just have Herald and then this Herald. Like, just to be playing a bunch of Heralds, they're my favorite. I actually created a Yu-Gi-Oh deck called Ascended Heralds, and they're fake cards, but I just love Heralds that much. And then 1 ints. For the links, we have Boar Sword and Boar Load. Typically, your removal always targets, and even if it doesn't destroy, it always targets. So, Boar Load is your clutch out for cards that can be targeted or destroyed, or you just Boar Sword over them. Typically, the game plan is just negate your opponent's plays and Boar Sword them to death. If you have a Christia on field, you just play Beatdown with Christia and Herald. Summon Sword, you summon it almost every turn. Hit Pull Shinigen, which is really amazing for stick chair combos because you can plus really hard off of this. You're able to make it and then do your stick chair combo. And you target this, destroy it, you draw a card, then use this effect, add another Fairy from grave to hand, then drop your Christia. And we have Phoenix in Service and Link Karibo to finish up the links. I don't have Unicorn, or otherwise I would play it. I still wouldn't cut Boar Load over Unicorn, though. And then for the XYZs, we have Diamond, which is an auto win against milling decks like Burning Abyss, etc. And it's really good against dark attributes as well, because it just negates the effects of dark monsters, which is more negations on board. Specific to the matchup, of course, really good against Orcas because they can't resolve Nightmare, and it can negate any of their effects, which is really amazing. Deltaros, Insane going second, just pop, pop, pop. And while he has materials, your opponent can't respond to Scepter because it's on summon, and if you read his effect, that's what it says. Also, that your opponent can't respond to your ritual summons. And then we have Ouroboros and also Dweller to finish up the extra deck. Let's see. Okay, we're 21 minutes in, so I got to speed through my side deck. So the side deck is 3 Lancia. Now, this card is not only amazing in this format, but also what's the attribute and what's the type. Alright, so you can clearly see that this card is a searchable hand trap in my deck. I can side this in going first and just side 1 copy in because it's super easy to search. You search this against Orcus and Danger Thunder Dragons going first. You can pitch this and save and conserve a lot of it. You basically get to consolidate a lot of your negations that you would use because a lot of effects they can't use because they can't banish. So you save your resources for the OTK. This is what makes this deck even more high ceiling. The fact that one of the best hand traps of the format is searchable in this deck is amazing. 3 Slumbers and 3 Kaijus. One of the Kaijus is actually the Thunder King. The reason why I play him, even though you can't tribute your opponent's monster to summon him, is because he synergizes really well with Slumber. And if you read his effect, not the first one, which is kind of irrelevant because I don't play enough Kaijus, it's during your invades, if this card's in your graveyard, you can special summon this card. You can only use that effect once per duel. So typically what you do when you Slumber, if you didn't kill your opponent and if you couldn't Kaiju, you couldn't kill them and you couldn't drop Christia, you just bring this guy back to your field, and he protects you from being Kaiju'd. That was the theory I had, because Christia is what protects me from Kaijus, and if I can't protect myself with Kaijus with Christia, I can use Slumber as a follow-up to not only help to break a board and establish Herald, but I give myself protection from Kaijus, because Kaijus are pretty prevalent. So yeah, it's like a nifty little creative idea I had, and it also just gives you a body on board for more damage pushes and link climbing and stuff like that. 6-card Kaiju package. And then these cards are actually other cards, but I just put in generic side. Well, Hey Trunade actually is in my real side deck for Heralds. I only played 2 of it. But yeah, Hey Trunade's amazing in this format. I don't know why people aren't playing it. It's not like it doesn't exist, and it's not like I'm saying I'm the only one playing it. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I really don't know why the good players aren't running it. And then Evenly Match is basically a substitute for 3 of the real card that I'm side decking that I'm not going to tell you guys about because it's a really old card and I don't want anybody to start playing it except me. So if you guys ever figure it out, it'll be because I dueled against you, but not because I told you. Sorry, but some things I have to keep a secret. Thank you guys so much for watching my deck profile. You guys know how I feel about this deck. I love it so much. If you guys are interested in test hands, I got that coming. But right now, I have to get back to my family and have some game night and dinner. And yeah, thank you guys so much. God bless you guys. Make good choices. Don't hurt your brain cells. Stay tuned for future content. You folks have a beautiful day, all right? And stay positive. Peace.